If you're in Microsoft Access and you've ever wanted to create a blank Excel workbook inside of that environment, it's really easy to do. With just a little bit of VBA code, we can make a spreadsheet open up and save it with the name of our choice. So stay tuned and follow along. I'll try to make it as simple as possible and step by step. Navigate down to Modules in your Object menu. Once you're in the Module Object area, you want to click on New and expand the module window. Access relies on reference libraries, and one library is not enabled when you install the software. All we have to do is turn this reference on to make Excel work inside of Microsoft Access. Navigate to Tools, click on References, go to the scroll bar, and find Microsoft Excel. I have Excel 12.0 Object Library installed on my machine. I'm going to tick that box and click OK. The first thing I'd like to do is give my module a name so that I can call it. I'm going to call it Create New Excel Book and hit Enter. Let's continue. I'm going to hit Enter a few times to give me a little room. And I'm going to declare my first variable. I'm going to make X1 as the Excel application. If we didn't tick Excel references on, we wouldn't get this drop-down menu. But since I am getting the drop-down menu, I know the VBA compiler understands what I'm trying to do. Let's move on. I'm going to declare one more variable, and I'm going to call it X1 app. Now I need a variable for the workbook. We need one more variable to add a sheet to the workbook. I don't have a form yet to actually put this code behind, so now I can just use an input box. So that's what I'm going to do, but I need to declare a string, so I'm going to call it name of book as string. Let's make X1 the variable that becomes the Excel application. So we need to set X1 to equal a brand new Excel application, and that's just what I've done. Now we need to add one worksheet to the book. I also need to add a workbook to the brand new Excel application. So I'm going to make X1 workbook equal add a workbook. There's a property. If you at any time want to discover what those properties are, go ahead and highlight your period, and then you can see all the available properties that you can tap into. Let's move on to the next command. Now I could very well do a lot of these things with the book closed, but for this example, I feel we should open the book just so we can see it actually happening. So what you do is you make X1 visible and equal to true. If I ever at any time didn't want to see this book, I'll just equal this to false. Okay, so I can open up my workbook. I'm going to add in a sheet, but I also want to name it something. So now it's time to make room for our input box. So I'm going to use our name of book string I have declared at the top, and I'm going to pass in that input into that name. That way when I save the book, it becomes whatever I want it to become. In order to save the book, by default, Excel usually prompts you when you're trying to save the book. I want to set that alert to off, so I'm going to set that property to false. Okay, let's move on. Now I want to save the book as something. And if you notice here, I have my variable name of book passed into this particular path. It will save the book as whatever I want to call it. Normally when you save a book, another display alert comes on. I'm going to turn that one off too. I now want to close the book. And when you're developing, you also have to clear out your memory once you're done using it, or it will stay open and cause you all kinds of problems if you want to get into an Excel workbook again. So I just set the x1 to nothing. And then you have to set the other variable, x1 workbook, to nothing. And last but not least, let's set the worksheet to nothing. All right, this code looks pretty good to me. Let's hit our save button. Make sure that everything looks good. And let's test it out. For demonstration purposes, I'll just minimize the compiler window so that I can show you what it does. We're going to step through this code. Make sure your cursor is blinking next to the function name or anywhere under this line. And I hit F8. So what it's going to do, it's going to open up a workbook and add a workbook to it. Now it's going to ask us a name. Let's call it New Workbook. Click OK. Now it's going to save it. It's going to quit the application. It's going to clear out our memory. And if you notice here, I have a new workbook on my desktop. Let's do this again and we'll make a new one so that you can see how fast it is. This time I'm going to hit the Run button. And there it is. It appeared just like that. So, thank you for watching my tutorial on how to create a brand new book using VBA inside of Microsoft Access.